The latest controversy to hit AstraZeneca. AstraZeneca said its COVID vaccine is 76% effective in the new analysis of its US trial. That's a tad lower than the level in an earlier report this week, which was criticized for using outdated data. The interim data, which was published on Monday, put the efficacy rate at 79%, but had not included more recent infections, leading to a highly unusual public rebuke from US health officials. Well, to talk more about this, we're joined by Dr. Fahim Yunus, Chief of Infectious Diseases, University of Maryland and Upper Chesapeake. And of course, we're going to talk more about COVID. But first and foremost about this entire controversy, Dr. Fahim Yunus, do explain to us, AstraZeneca came out with this press release and then there was a rebuke from a US agency, creating more doubts and controversy.
It's too early to know all the details, but I believe it's a good vaccine and bad communication. So if you ask me how it's going to end, because we know so much about the trials of AstraZeneca, we know the phase 1, phase 2 studies, we know the early data from UK, South Africa, and Brazil. I believe it's a good vaccine. It's just bad communication and too much pressure to compete right now. Everybody's focused on an efficacy number because Moderna and Pfizer have set a certain standard at 95%. Any vaccine, and these are just my words, this is just my understanding, I could be wrong, but I think anybody who's in the 60s or 70s, they just feel like somehow they have to bump up their numbers, but that's not the focus. The focus is, or it should be, what is the impact on hospitalizations and deaths? And most of these vaccines are really good and quite tight there. So let's just wait how it comes out in the next few days.
Now, in India, we've, announced that new variants of coronavirus have been discovered. And of course, all of you doctors have been saying that there's nothing unusual. Viruses do mutate, but the worry is whether they're more infectious.
Exactly. I think variant is the new buzzword in this pandemic. And most people don't understand that this is just like any other virus. mRNA, RNA viruses mutate all the time. Having a variant more prevalent, I don't think means anything. What means is the variant different? Is it more transmissible, or is it more fatal, or is it going to evade immunity, as we say? And a lot of science has to go in before we can definitely say those things. For example, as far as evasion of immunity, I think my litmus test would be when we truly have someone who's fully immunized 2 weeks after the second dose, and then gets a variant infection, or someone who's recovered from COVID and then gets a variant infection. Once we see those cases, I think then you can be sure that this is something of concern. That's not to say we don't work ahead and we don't plan ahead. I just think there should be separation between what happens in scientific communities and academia and boardrooms compared to what happens on media. So I don't think an average person should be overly concerned. It's the same method of prevention of social distancing, masks, washing hands, avoiding indoor spaces, and that's what we should focus on.
Right, but the concern with variants, at least among the public, is also about the effectiveness of the vaccine. And here in India, we have 2 vaccines. Of course, Moderna and Pfizer have come out and said that they are effective against the variants as well.
Sure, I believe that whichever vaccine you can get, you should. There is more studies and a little bit more data with Pfizer and Moderna that they may have more efficacy proven against the variants. But the reality is we make choices in life all the time. If you look at all your friends, they're all driving different cars. Some are more expensive, some are less expensive, but they're all safe and they're all getting you from point A to point B. And I think at some stage we need to bring that sort of practicality to a pandemic. Let's just look at what gets us from point A to point B and not worry about the fancy stuff. If particularly it's not available to the masses, it's only going to generate pessimism and more discord.
Now, there have also been cases of people getting both doses of the vaccine and then developing coronavirus. And of course, these are anecdotal cases, but there is some concern. We get a lot of questions about that. What can you tell us?
That's a great question. I can't talk of every vaccine because I don't think we have enough data on every vaccine. So let's just say hypothetical vaccine X that has efficacy of 90%. What that means is that when you will, 90% means 1 out of 10 people who's vaccinated will still get the virus. So it should not be a surprise. And when you project that 10% to a population of 1 billion people, right, that number is going to grow exponentially. It's a big number. Once again, what people should focus on is not that whether after vaccine they got corona. The question is whether after vaccine they got corona and got hospitalized or died. If they had a bad outcome, I think then that is a matter of concern. If they just had sniffles and got better, actually that's why the vaccine is there for, to dampen the impact of the disease. So to sum it up, a small percentage will get these infections. We should focus on what is the outcome. As long as their outcomes are good, it actually proves the point that vaccines are good and they prevent severe disease.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Fahim Yunus, for speaking to us here at NDTV again. And with that, time for us to slip into a short break. On the other side, we'll take a look at some of the coronavirus forecasts for India.